Well, hey, how's everybody doing today? I see there's 5 of you in here. Hopefully things run a little bit smoother than last week. Um, Not that I changed too much about my setup, but I'm starting to kind of realize where the issues are. It seems to be maybe more about my internet than it is about my computer itself. So we're trying to get Comcast to come out here um, and set us up with internet, but I haven't set up an internet account in so long that I forgot that I need to go get a router and modem and all that fun stuff. So hopefully we're doing that today. But in the meantime, I dropped the background music stream down as low quality as possible. If things start goofing up, I might drop that off entirely, just so it's one less thing that the internet has to deal with. Danny, you know what I'm talking about. You've been here with it. You stuck with it last week. Hey, thank you for resubscribing, Mac. It's easy and free with Amazon Prime. Absolutely. I'm not gonna push too much for people to subscribe during my streams until I get all the kinks and stuff worked out. Because I don't want people to feel like they're not getting, whatever they're not necessarily money's worth if they're doing it with Prime, but you know what I mean. Their subscription's worth. Today we're going through chapter 10 and 11 of Mad Love. If last week was kind of a shit show, the stream was up and down, and I think James said that when he went back to try to archive it, it was like 9 different videos. So not a lot of people stuck with it last time, but last time we were with Harley, and she set up a female Arkham inmate support group that consists of March Harriet from the Wonderland Gang, Baby Doll, and Magpie. And so today they're going to be jumping back into that, and we're going to be going all the way up to, if you saw the promo image, when Joker gives her that note saying, "Hey, come see me sometime." So we should be doing chapter 10 and 11. They're both a bit smaller than last week's chapter, and I'm hoping once again that I've got most of the bugs worked out. But yeah, so let's go ahead. Let's hop on in to chapter 10. The optimism Harleen had been coasting on after the first group session began to fade slightly when she saw Harriet Pratt's sour expression before the second even started. Looks like the gloves are coming off, Harleen thought, although she held out a faint hope that Harriet's bad mood had nothing to do with her. She pretended to go through her notes while she waited for the orderlies to transfer all the patients from the wheelchairs, sneaking surreptitious glances from under her brows. If Harriet was bent out of shape over the wheelchair, Harleen didn't blame her. It was standard practice for transferring high-risk, dangerous patients within Arkham, but Harleen didn't like it. The chairs had restraints for every part of a patient's body, head included. It was clamped to the high back of the chair. At a staff meeting, she had questioned the necessity of immobilizing patients to the point where they couldn't even look around. A nurse, named Frida Vance, said she'd obviously never been headbutted by a psycho in a bad mood. Harleen still didn't like it. Not allowing patients to walk even a short distance on their 2 feet seemed like a bullying tactic. Surely a show of force wasn't always necessary. If the staff always acted like they expected trouble, then the patients would simply live up or down to their expectations. If, on the other hand, I think last week can be best described as a beautiful mess. Absolutely. Sup. Not much, Greg. We're reading chapters 10 and 11 this week of the Mad Love novelization. Let's see. If, on the other hand, the patients were treated with a modicum of respect, they'd be more inclined to civilized behavior. Granted, there were some very dangerous inmates who couldn't be allowed to move about freely. Killer Croc, for example, who probably remembered their first and so far only meeting as vividly as she did. She didn't know how they moved him around. An ordinary wheelchair wouldn't have held him for 2 seconds, but there was only one of him. Harleen had familiarized herself with the files of all Arkham's current residents, and if she had listed them by how dangerous they were in descending order, these 4 women wouldn't have made the top 10. Not that they wouldn't have been extremely dangerous in the outside world, especially Pamela Eiley. Hey, what was that noise? Someone, good job, Robin. Oh, Keanu Comics has followed. Well, thank you for following, Keanu. Glad to have you here. Big fan of your work in Bill and Ted. Not that they wouldn't have been extremely dangerous in the outside world, especially Pamela Eiley, but they weren't outside, and they knew they never would be, assuming Magpie even knew where she was. But treating Margaret Pye as if she were one of the most dangerous patients in the place couldn't possibly be therapeutic and gave her no reason to say anything except, "Shiny, shiny." "Need us for anything else?" an orderly asked Harleen. His name tag said Kevin. It seemed incongruously boyish for a man who was 6'5" and had had a career as a linebacker on Gotham's pro football team. "No, we'll be fine," Harleen replied. He started to leave, then paused to lean down and whisper, "Watch out for Harriet. She's loaded for bear today." The armed guard at the door let the orderlies out and assumed his usual parade rest stance. Harleen winced inwardly. If Harriet's loaded for bear, so are we, and we always shoot first. She turned back to the group. Pamela Eiley was still ignoring her. They'd chained her up differently today, curtailing her range so she could only reach the longest strands of her hair. That was kind of mean, Harleen thought. Maybe she should call the orderlies back in and make them change it. Harriet was glaring at her as if her eyes could beam death rays. Magpie was muttering, "Shiny, shiny," under her breath, and staring at Harley's bare throat with a mix of hurt and suspicion, as if the absence of Harleen's necklace was a personal affront. While Mary Louie Dahl didn't do it, but had yet to work herself into a crying jag. "All right," Harleen said, hoping her cheerful tone didn't sound forced. "I thought today we could talk about what we hope to get out of these sessions. I'll give you a little time to think." "I could tell you that right in and now, miss," Harriet said. So that's what high dudgeon looks like, Harleen thought. It's doctor, not miss. Doctor. Or doc for short. "Have it your way. But then you always do, don't you, doc?" Pink spots appeared on Harriet's cheeks. "You all do, and us, we have to take it. We does. 'Cause we're just scum to you. It's your world, we just live in it. If you call this living." She rattled her chains. Haven't heard that one before, LOL. Love the content. Well, thanks. Thanks for being around. Maddie, when is the next video you're going to be in? I think in a couple weeks. I'm working on writing it right now. It's going to be about the Flash Museum. But there are a couple things that I'm having trouble nailing down. There's like just 3 items that it's just like, I don't know what these are. So it's kind of, racking my brain to try to figure that out. Ivy has her plant manipulating powers already, right? I think that puts her in the top 5 most dangerous inmates, never mind the top 10. Yeah, that's my thought. I think what they're saying, though, is that since she's locked up in Arkham, they can kind of control her proximity to plants, which is why Harley was saying that, in the outside world, she's more dangerous. But that's my guess. Where was I? Harleen wondered if someone had forgotten to tell her Harriet Pratt was a metahuman with telepathy. "All right, Doc," Harriet went on, "is what I want out of these sessions, as you call them." She drew herself up as much as she could. "Tea!" Harleen blinked at her. "Say again?" Harriet looked heavenward for a moment. Blimey, Doc, did the Lord strike you, Mutt and Jeff? 'Cause you can't be that, Tom Thumb. T, I want T, Kiki D, Bruce Lee, you and me. Harleen was looking through the folder for information on Harriet's medications, thinking someone had forgotten to give them to her when Pamela Eiley said, she means the drink, like cup of tea, Earl Grey, English breakfast, Lipton, Tetley. She sounded even more bored and jaded than she had in the last session, but Harleen was sure she detected the barest hint of amusement, which also counted. Mary Louie burst into tears. It's not my fault, she sobbed. It's yours. You did it. She's right, Harriet, Pamela Eiley said, still tired of it all. She'd given up trying to reach her hair and was now studying her manicure. It's your fault for being deliberately obtuse. I knew what you meant, but I've been stuck in here with you long enough to grow a redwood. I know Kiki D and the rest of it is supposed to be Cockney rhyming slang. It's not supposed to be. It is, Harriet snapped. Have a butcher's on the web. See if I'm right. But the doc probably thought you were having a stroke. Pamela Eiley finished with a long, heavy sigh. If I had a time machine, I'd go back to the days when I couldn't understand a word you said. Made it so much easier to block you out. The tension in the room was all but electric. Behind her, Harleen heard the guard open the door and beckon a few orderlies in. She twisted around in her chair briefly and held up one hand to tell them to stay back. They were ready to swarm over the women and subdue them, and she couldn't let that happen. She had to show all of them. She didn't need a goon squad to rush in with restraints and tranquilizers every time someone had an emotion, especially when they were already in restraints. Time out, everybody, Harleen said, making the hand signal. There's only one thing we need right now, a nice cup of tea. Instantly, Harriet's demeanor went from belligerent to delighted. Don't mind if I do, ducks. Earl Grey, if you please. Herbal, said Pamela Eiley, more jaded than ever. Harley turned to Magpie and Mary Louie. Shiny, Magpie said, sulkily, her eyes fixed on Harley's throat. Pop, Mary Louie demanded. Not nasty-wasty tea, pop! Harleen turned to the orderlies. Is anyone writing this down? She asked. Harriet wants Earl Grey tea, herbal for Pamela. She hesitated for a moment. Water with lots of shiny ice cubes for Margaret Pye, and soda for Mary Louie, something without caffeine. Ginger ale or grape or something, and green tea for me. Bring enough for more than one cup or glass, please. We'll probably have to take a couple of them to the bathroom, an orderly named Oscar said. That's what they pay you for, Harleen said archly, though you should have a female nurse to chaperone. And cookies. The orderly stared at her, baffled. Cookies? Bring a plate of cookies with our beverages, Harleen told him. Refreshments aren't complete without cookies. Okay, so we got a couple of small things there. Kid Flash suit and Jay Garrick helmet. Yes, those are 100% for sure in the Flash Museum. But there's a lot more. There's a lot more going on in that museum. Lots of statues of villains and weapons and stuff that were used against Flash at points in times, etc., etc. But it's not even clear that that's actually Jay Garrick's helmet. Dwayne McDuffie suggested it might not be. Okay, so we've got a couple new characters were mentioned. We have Frida Vance, which in my head I want to connect to Bobby Vance, who was, if you remember, the Batman Beyond episode Lost Soul. He was he was the kid whose like great grandpa was stuck in the computer. They brought him back around in Justice League Unlimited, or at least a family member. I want to say they used the same character model and still named him Vance. He was the one that let Task Force X onto the Watchtower, if I'm remembering correctly. So automatically I want to assume that that's a wink and a nod, though it's very likely that it's not. Let's see, we have an orderly named Kevin and an orderly named Oscar, And then when we had the lists of tea, I know not all of them were brands, but some of them are. I want to say Lipton, I'm pretty sure, is a brand and not a type of tea. And then Tetley, I want to say, yeah, so Lipton for sure is just the brand, British brand of tea. So let me put that in I'll put that in the pop culture, I suppose. And I think Tetley is a brand as well. Whereas English Breakfast and Earl Grey are just flavors. Yeah, so Tetley is also a brand. I feel like whenever I get tea, I'm more familiar with Lipton than Tetley. Though I don't get tea too often, and when I do, it's usually like like herbal teas and stuff. And I think Lipton is more iced tea bags. And I think that's everything so far from this pre-page break section. I haven't watched Batman Beyond in a while. My baby brother stole my DVD set. Oof, that'll do it. That will certainly do it. Okay. Now, this is what I call civilized, ducky. Harriet said as the orderlies wheeled in a cart. None of the other patients argued. Even Pamela Eiley sat quietly as an orderly set a cup of herbal tea on the wide arm of her chair. She removed the tea bag, set it in the saucer, and picked up the cup. Unfortunately, the chain attached to the cuff on her wrist didn't allow her to bring it all the way to her lips. If she wanted to drink, she had to bend her head awkwardly. It was the same for the others. Harleen was appalled. Could we please adjust these restraints to give everyone a better range of movement? She demanded, not hiding her irritation. These women should be allowed to eat and drink without contorting themselves. The orderlies hesitated, and Harleen turned to look at the armed guard. Do as she says, the guard told them. The orderlies looked dubious, but they obeyed. And let me flip the page. And there we are. Where am I originally from? So I was born in Alabama, mostly raised in Florida, but I was back and forth between there and then Georgia is where I ended up living throughout high school and the first time I went to college, I guess you could say, and I was living there up until like 3 years ago. Let's see, where was I? Oh yeah. Thank you. I'll call if I need anything else, Harleen said when they were done and jerked her head toward the door. As I was saying, Harriet Pratt purred when the orderlies were gone, civilized, ain't I right now, ducks? The question seemed to be addressed to Pamela Eiley. It looked like one of the vines had fallen into her cup. Harleen wondered if she should tell her not to do that. But why? She wasn't dipping her vine in someone else's drink, and she didn't seem to be doing herself any harm. Sipping her green tea, Harleen let them... Oh no. Is she gonna, like, do something with the herbs inside of the tea? Sipping her green tea, Harleen let them have a few minutes to enjoy their respective drinks. In truth, she needed a minute to get over feeling stupid and guilty. She should have thought of this without Harriet Pratt's histrionics. All her self-righteousness about treating patients with respect, and it had never occurred to her it would be nice to serve refreshments in the middle of the afternoon. It was the way they did things in the outside world, the civilized world. From now on, their sessions would always include a refreshment cart, Harleen decided. She would try to make these meetings more like an oasis of calm and dignity, or as much as they could be, with the patients chained to their chairs. I almost intervened and shut you down for good, Dr. Leland said later when she dropped by Harleen's office. But the way you took charge of the room, not just the patients, but the staff too, gave me a good feeling. I'm inclined to let these sessions continue and see where they go. With the refreshment cart, she added. The orderlies told you all that? Harleen said, surprised. Dr. Leland shook her head. Security showed me the video. Most rooms in Arkham are monitored. You know that. Harleen looked around nervously. There had been a few times she'd changed her pantyhose here, and once she'd had to staple a broken bra strap. Had she been giving security a peep show? She was about to say something, but Dr. Leland was still talking. Keep your guard up. It's okay for the patients to relax, but don't give them the idea that they can get familiar. Never forget they're criminally insane. Make sure they're clear about your boundaries and you don't overstep. Harleen wanted to ask whose boundaries security respected, but Dr. Leland received a text and hurried back to her office. Disappointed, Harleen made a note to do all her pantyhose changing and bra repair in a stall in the doctor's lavatory, although, for all she knew, the stalls were monitored too. If they were, there was probably a horror story behind it. Arkham was a very bizarre place to work. Maybe this was why Dr. Leland was so caught up in structure and convention. She was so concerned with Harleen's maintaining proper boundaries with the group, but never considered how the woman felt about being forced to participate in restraints, in actual chains. Women in chains, metal, not metaphorical. No doubt the rattle and clink kept boundary issues from slipping their minds. Even if there was no chance these women would leave Arkham, Harleen saw no reason not to try getting them out of their chains. If she helped them enough that they would be allowed to walk from one place to another and to sit in ordinary chairs like regular people rather than being chained up like animals, how much better their lives would be. Maybe they'd be more receptive to therapy rather than fighting it. Just because they were permanently incarcerated didn't mean they shouldn't be helped. Let's see. Okay, so I gotta turn it after this. Harleen was nervous about the third session. Dr. Percival had made a stupid joke in the staff meeting comparing it to a third date. Daniel Duvall, the head nurse for the lighter security ward on the 5th floor, asked him with a straight face if he'd ever had a third date himself, and if so, how long ago. More people had laughed at that one, which had put Dr. Percival's nose out of joint and made Harleen feel a little better. But it was Dr. Leland who had really put her on edge. Sometimes she thought Dr. Leland made a point of doing that right before a session. She had stopped in at Harleen's office half an hour before the session to repeat herself about maintaining proper boundaries, staying alert and observant, and remembering that Magpie and Mary Louise could be as cunning as poison ivy. Harleen had very nearly corrected her with the patient's real name as an example of a boundary issue, but she resisted. Having an argument with her boss wouldn't put her in an ideal frame of mind to meet with her patients. The session... let me turn the page. There we go. Folensby, West Virginia, only 12 hours. I don't think I've ever been to West Virginia. Let me see, where was I? The session proceeded without incident, although it seemed to Harleen that everyone, including the orderlies and the armed guard at the door, were on edge to some degree. Emotions could be contagious, especially negative ones like anxiety and apprehension. Harleen made a lengthy note in her personal journal that this was what she really had to be careful of. Boundaries be damned. Projecting a confident, positive attitude was far more important, and she should be more mindful about that. Despite her determination, Harleen came away from the 4th session more dismayed. The conversation had been more aimless and unfocused than in their first session. She had tried to facilitate a discussion, but no one had responded to any of her openers. Instead of blubbering, Mary Louise had spent the time mimicking Poison Ivy, pretending she was bored and saying nothing other than, "Nasty wasty Occam." But at least it proved her baby act really was a put-on. Even Magpie had been quieter than usual, only saying shiny a few times in a sulky voice, as if making an accusation. And Harriet had been almost mute, responding to whatever Harleen said to her, with a grunt or an emphatic shrug that rattled her chains. It pained Harleen to admit it, but she had to take a page from Dr. Leland's playbook and add more structure after all. The women had to understand that the sessions weren't merely something to break up the afternoon routine, but a purposeful therapeutic program. As such, there were goals that the women were expected to achieve. So starting with the 5th session, she would have an agenda for every meeting. The women might not like being pushed, but she couldn't let them get away with doing nothing. That wasn't therapy, that was entropy. How do I ban this inmate J guy who's spamming? How do I do that? Do I click on them? No, that's oh, there we go. Ban. There we go. That person's out of here. Oh, I just clicked a button that how do I get back to the regular chat? I seem to have gotten myself confused over here. Oh well. We'll figure it out. Someone drop something in chat. Maybe it'll maybe I'm still in the chat and it's possible that that ban is just the bottom thing. Let's see. So we had a couple mentions of some folks before the page break. We had Dr. Percival. Is that someone that we had already? Yes, Dr. Reginald Percival was in Chapter 8. But then we had Danielle Duval, who is definitely a new character. So let me add them in. Okay, how do I get off of this inmate J's? No, that just goes to their profile. Does banning someone really just freeze the chat? Let me refresh chat. Boom. Boom. There we go. If I just hit refresh chat, all is well. Wait, why is it on the... That's not the where I meant to click. There we go. Okay, so now I don't see anything in the chat. So if I missed something, oh, maybe I can look really close. Oh, I didn't realize that that Jake was here. Hey Jake, how's it going? Consider to be one of the... Oh no. I've only seen a little bit of Superman the Animated Series. It do be that way sometimes. My fiance's also only seen a little bit of Superman the Animated Series. Okay, so where was I? Okay, yeah. I'd like to something new today. I'd like to do something new today, Harleen. Okay. Yep. I'd like to do something new today, Harleen said when they were all settled with their various drinks. There's a new way to sit around in chains and talk about nothing? Pamela Eiley said in her standard tired of life voice. Oh joy, I never dared to dream. Harleen told herself to be positive. At our second session, we talked about what we wanted to get out of these sessions. Well, Ducky, that's what I want, Harriet said, laughing. I want to get out of these bloody sessions. If that's true, Harleen said, refusing to be discouraged, you have to have a plan. I have a plan, Pamela Eiley said languidly. I'm going to put Batman's head on a pike. Me too, and said the other three in unison. Harleen's jaw dropped. She hadn't thought Magpie would ever say anything other than shiny. It's Batman what put most of us in this dungeon, Harriet added to Harleen, as if in a confidential aside. If it weren't for bloody Batman, we'd all be shiny, proclaimed Magpie. Harriet chuckled. Right you are, ducks. We'd all be shiny and happy and running free with the wind in our hair. Nasty wasty batty man, Mary Louise began to cry. I didn't do it. I didn't. It wasn't my fault, but he didn't care. Hate, hate, hate. Instead of complaining about Mary Louise, Pamela Eiley launched into a story about her last encounter with Batman, the one that had put her in Arkham. Harleen's first impulse was to try to steer them back to the topic of setting goals. Then she caught herself. Pamela Eiley was talking, not taking shots, but talking about something that happened to her, and without acting like she was so bored she could barely stay awake. Magpie had uttered a different word. No, two of them. And Mary Louise's blubbering had subsided. Like the other two, she was listening to what Pamela Eiley was saying. The hell with structure, Harleen thought. If she cut this off now, Pamela Eiley would shut down and the rest would follow suit. She might never get any of them to open up again. Maybe they just need the right subject. It was like they'd all been wandering around, lost in their respective darkness, and then suddenly they'd all found the North Star simultaneously. That would make a fascinating article, Harleen thought, or a chapter in a book. It's kind of meta. She started making notes as she sipped her tea. Batman was the key to breaking down the walls they had put up. So what if their feelings weren't terribly positive? Getting through to them was what mattered. And if she could only do that by way of something they all hated, so what? It united them, made them a real group. Let me flip the pages real quick. Except for the nasal filters, Pamela Eiley said, and looked directly at Harleen for the first time. Nasal filters, Harleen said, nodding as if she'd heard every word. Of all things, Pamela Eiley shook her head, nasal filters never occurred to me. Why do you think that is? Harleen asked. The question sounded inane, even to her, but it was the only one she could think of. How could she have let her mind wander when Pamela Eiley had actually been saying something? They just didn't. Pamela gave her contemptuous look and turned back to the other women. If Batman hadn't been wearing them, my special strain of night blooming jasmine would have knocked him flat on his bat ass, and he'd be fertilizing my garden even as we speak. Instead, he got me committed to this place, where you can't get decent sunlight even from a southern exposure. Shiny, Magpie said, her voice mournful. Harleen wished she'd paid closer attention, but even as she thought it, her mind was trying to wander again. This was a hell of a time to lose her psychiatry mojo, she thought. Then she wondered when she had started saying things like mojo. Now, Pammy, love, I can't tell you exactly where you went Pete Tong, Harriet was saying in a know-it-all tone. Oh, do tell. Pamela's voice dropped with sarcasm. You took the blighter on by yourself. You can't go up against the big bad bat alone. You need a gang backing you up, along with a partner you can trust with your very life. Harriet's smugness was so intense, Harleen could have sworn the air shimmered around her. Taking on Batman without anyone else, well, that's just mad. Oh, right. Pamela looked down her nose at Harriet. A woman is nothing without a man. How did I forget that? Now, love, everybody needs a best mate, someone who's got your back. Harriet went on. No man is an island, and no woman either. You can't be working without a net. Me old China, we make a perfect set. We do him being the Mad Hatter and me being Shiny, Magpie declared. March Harriet, she corrected. And yet, in the end, you didn't do any better. Pamela waved one hand, and the vines seemed to copy the gesture. Only they couldn't have, Harleen thought. They were plants, not snakes. Although, right now, they looked like plant-snake hybrids. Okay. You're in here with us, and your best buddy is where? At someone else's tea party, I guess. He certainly isn't at this one. That's what you get for being some man's appendage. When it's crunch time, they always throw you under the bus to save themselves. Always. It wasn't like that, Harriet snapped. Really? Pamela gave a short, scornful laugh. Can't tell just by looking. Shiny! Magpie put in. All the women turned to Harleen, their faces expectant. Well, this subject is difficult, Harleen said, speaking slowly, trying to gather her thoughts. The cup in her hand was suddenly so heavy, hard to hold up, like her eyelids. Meanwhile, the vines in Pamela's hair were getting longer, flowing over her shoulders and down her arms, except they couldn't have been. They couldn't have grown all the way down to the chains, and they certainly couldn't be breaking the links as if they were flimsy plastic right before her eyes. I did not just see that, Harleen thought as the vines moved on to free Harriet, then Magpie, and Mary Louie. I'm hallucinating. It didn't happen. Oh, but it did happen, Pamela Eiley said, no longer bored. You're not hallucinating. How did I speak aloud and not know it? Harleen wondered, watching as Pamela got up from her chair. Pamela was smiling as she came toward her. Did you know that roots can break through metal pipes buried in the ground, even crack the foundation of a house? All the women were getting up now. Then Pamela was looming over her, with more vines growing out of her hair. Harleen's cup slipped out of her fingers and fell on the carpet with a distant thump. The tea! Harleen realized. What's the matter, ducks? Asked Harriet from somewhere behind Pamela. Something amiss with your tea? Her hand reached over Pamela's shoulder to dangle a tea bag in Harleen's face. Let's see. Okay, so we're about to turn the page. You know, I'm a doctor too, even if it's not the kind you are, Pamela said. Her low voice was practically a purr, but there was nothing soft about her expression. Brand new Dr. Harleen Quinzel. It's so obvious this is your first job. She gave a short laugh. What did you tell yourself you were doing? Trying to make a difference? Striking a blow for the loony sisterhood? Or can you actually admit you want to use us loony ladies of Arkham to get famous by writing a trashy true crime book? Flip the page. And we're almost done with the chapter. See, I like to draw Harley a lot, but only in the DCAU style. Maddie, are you involved with the Vi-Reality movie? I was in like a shot or two. I helped James film a I guess like something that happens in what might be the climax. So like I'm kind of involved, but like not in a huge not in any kind of huge role. Where was I? Crime book. Shiny, shiny, Magpie said shrilly. Where was the guard? Where was security? Wasn't this room monitored? Don't worry, ducks. We took care of the guard. Harriet crowded in next to Pamela, still dangling the tea bag from two fingers. It looked homemade and smelled all wrong. And all anybody's seeing on the closed-circuit TV is us sitting nice and quiet, like the good little loony ladies we are. How? Harleen thought. How? How what, love? Harriet crackled. Be specific. I didn't mean to, wailed Mary Louie, and began hitting Harleen with her doll hard, over and over. It was a lot heavier than any doll Harleen had ever had, and squeaked mama on every blow. No, stop, Harleen pleaded. It was an enormous effort to speak, but she had to get through to them. I didn't want to use you. I wanted to show how you've all been used. By the police, by the justice system, and most of all, by Batman. More tea, love? Harriet shoved Pamela aside and brandished a broken mug. Just half a cup. Harleen turned her face away and saw the guard on the floor, tightly wrapped in vines from head to foot, unable to move or call out. Eager hands grabbed at her throat, and she realized belatedly she had forgotten to take her necklace off. Harleen felt the chain cutting into her neck as Magpie yanked on it. Shiny! Shiny! I didn't mean to! Sobbed Mary Louie. Harleen saw Pamela Eiley push herself in front of the other women, just as everything went black. Okay, so there was a couple things. I realized that I missed. They had mentioned Bruce Lee at one point. Yeah. So I should probably have that written in, at least in the characters. And then they said Kiki D, which I don't know. I don't know if that's an actual person or if that's like just some term. Kiki D is a singer. Okay. What is she known for? Oh, Don't Go Breaking My Heart. Okay, she's a female voice. Got it. Got it. And then there was another that March Harriet like just said just a little bit ago. What was it? Pete Tong. That's it. Is Pete Tong a person? Pete Tong is a DJ. English disc jockey who works for BBC Radio 1. There you go. Makes sense that March Harriet would know a BBC DJ. And then I guess for not canon, this isn't a big thing, but Ivy mentions her last fight with Batman included nasal what was it, nasal filters? Yes. And I don't think we see this anywhere else in the DCAU. But that's it for chapter 10. I've got more familiarity with Batman the Animated Series, but I do love Batman the Brave and the Bold. It's just been like 7 or 8 years since I've watched it. So I can't really say for sure. I never really paid much mind to the Batman. All right, we got chapter 11. It's a short 5-page thing. I think we can do it real quick. Let's see. Harleen opened her eyes, then sat up with a start. "Relax," said Dr. Leland. "You're safe." By some miracle, she was on the leather sofa in Dr. Leland's office, and as far as she could tell, only slightly the worse for wear. Strands of hair hung in her face, her neat French roll was one big snarl, and her clothing was rumpled, but she wasn't hurt. Even the glasses in her blazer pocket were unbroken. "The guard didn't come out quite as well," Dr. Leland added. "Will he be all right?" Harleen asked. "He'll probably suffer from a green plant phobia for the rest of his life, but he'll live." Dr. Leland gave her a glass of water. Harleen suddenly realized she was dry-mouthed and thirsty and gulped it down. "How did I get out of there in one piece?" she asked. "Pamela Eiley," Dr. Leland replied, refilling the glass for her. "She saved you." Harleen shook her head, thinking she hadn't heard right. "No, Eiley was the ringleader," she said, sipping the water more slowly this time. There was still a funny taste in her mouth from the tea, or whatever it had been. "She freed the others so they could all attack me." She felt for her necklace and discovered it was still around her neck. Another miracle. "Mary Louise was hitting me with this incredibly heavy doll when I passed out." She gave a short, humorless laugh. "I'm sure she didn't mean to." Okay. The doll's head was stuffed with rocks, said Dr. Leland. Pamela Eiley loathes and despises all of humanity, singly and as a species, but apparently she loathes and despises you less than everyone else. Quite a lot less. She held off the others and called for help. All four are confined to their cells indefinitely, and needless to say, they won't be participating in any more group sessions, nor will any other patients. Harley nodded glumly. I've learned my lesson. No more therapy sessions where I'm outnumbered. Skip the page. There we go. And while we're exercising hindsight, Dr. Leland went on, I should never have allowed a metahuman inmate to participate without a whole lot more security and better personnel watching the monitors. People smart enough to notice when a pre-recorded loop has replaced the live feed. But it wasn't recreation, it was therapy, Harleen said, or it was supposed to be. Dr. Leland sat down on the sofa beside her. I bear all the responsibility for what happened, but I confess I wanted you to be right, that treating them like patients rather than the characters they pretend to be would force them out of their role-playing and give us a way to counter their illness. That was the idea. In spite of everything, Harleen felt pleased that Dr. Leland understood. I thought all I had to do was persist and I'd get through to them. Dr. Leland sighed. Well, we can dream. They sat together in silence for a few seconds. Then Harleen said, You knew, didn't you, that it wouldn't work. Like I said, I wanted you to be right. The other woman told her sadly, I thought maybe your being a new face with new ideas could make it happen. I hope that having a new staff member work with them would remind them that as much as Arkham felt like limbo, time passes and things change, and maybe they'd start thinking they didn't have to just be dangerous criminals in permanent lockup. That they might actually want something better. Sometimes Arkham does feel like limbo, Harleen said. It's out in the middle of nowhere. The patients have no human contact except with the staff and each other. There's no internet or social media. A small line appeared between Dr. Leland's eyebrows as she frowned. People sent here are too dangerous for a maximum security penitentiary and too sick for a locked ward. They've been declared too toxic for even the most polluted environment, as if they poisoned the air just by breathing it. Harleen blinked at her. She could barely believe this woman had just been talking about wanting to improve the inmates' lives. Dr. Leland gave her a sidelong look. That's me on a bad day, she said. Not everyone here is hopeless, Harleen said. Some people get better and leave. Sometimes, Dr. Leland said, it's an increasingly rare occurrence. Perhaps because the world is getting crazier, not saner, and Thomas Zaz was right. You mean about insanity being the only reaction to an insane world? Harleen asked. Got it in one. Dr. Leland rose and went to her desk. And no, he's no relation to Victor Zaz. That I know of, anyway. So, that's interesting, because this is the second mention we've gotten to Victor Zaz, at least in DCAU adjacent material, since, book club started up on Twitch. He was brought up as an Arkham inmate in the Rise of Senzu novel, and now we see him here. So that's an interesting thing. Bruce Timm or Paul Dini? Oh man, I don't know. I think they're both good guys. They'd both be pretty nice to meet. But both of them seem to have little character flaws here and there. Which I don't think that would make them any lesser of a of a person, of a nice guy or anything. But as far as like which one would I rather meet, it makes it a little harder to gauge just based off of that. Let's see. Victor Zaz is not allowed to exist within the DCAU. This is law. No, he's here. He's here. He's queer. Get used to it. Victor Zaz is now a gay icon. I've made it so. I don't know enough about Victor Zaz to maybe be sure that that's not a problematic thing to say, but it just kind of came out my head when saying he's here. Let's see. Harley moved from the couch to the chair in front of Dr. Leland's desk. You know, if the Babadook can be a gay icon, so can Victor Zsasz, right? I think that'd be fine. Harley moved from the couch to the chair in front of Dr. Leland's desk. But if that were true, she said slowly, it would mean there's no point in trying to help patients recover their sanity. And I ain't buying that for a minute, hun, she added in her tough Brooklyn cookie voice. Dr. Leland laughed a little. Good for you. Take the rest of the day off, and tomorrow as well, just to make sure whatever they put in the tea is completely out of your system. Rest up and come back the day after. There'll still be windmills to tilt at. I can't understand how they managed to drug me, Harleen said. They were all in restraints until Pamela's vines. She cut off. Was that really what she had seen, or had it been a hallucination? Dr. Leland shrugged. It's not the first time inmates have done the impossible here. They're a clever bunch, even the ones without, abilities. Harleen got up from the chair. Suddenly, she felt very tired. I really thought I was doing something for them, she said. Now do something for yourself for a change and stay home tomorrow. But I don't want to look weak, Harleen said. I won't have any credibility with the patients if they think Pamela Eiley can knock me on my butt whenever she wants. Don't worry about Poison Ivy, Dr. Leland told her. Remember, she hates you less than the rest of us. That'll work in your favor. A lot of inmates follow her lead, and they're not all women. Yeah, Harley is bisexual. She's wasn't she like recently dating Booster Gold, I think? Let's see. We got Thomas Zaz was a mentioned character. And Victor Zaz. As far as timeline stuff goes, I think Joan Leland just told her to stay home 2 days? No, okay, told her to take off tomorrow. That's page 97. All right. Let's see. Harleen went back to her office to pick up her things, including a few patient files. If she was going to stay home, she might as well be productive. She was trying to decide which files to take and whether to focus on personality disorders rather than diseases, as she struggled with the stubborn lock on her office door. And flip the page. Coming up on the end. Pretty sure that the Birds of Prey movie already made Vic LGBTQ+. I still haven't seen Birds of Prey. I need to. Sissy and I have been going through the DCEU movies and getting baked out of our minds and recording commentary tracks that we're hoping that that we can chop up into the funniest bits and use for content around the time that the Snyder Cut, that's it. Around the time that the Snyder Cut comes out. We were doing that like towards the start of quarantine, I think. And then we took a break. We still have Aquaman, Shazam, and Birds of Prey, I think, left to do. I don't read that many recent comics. I lied. I read none. I haven't been reading comics recently either, so you know, it be that way. Where was I? Okay. When she finally got the door open, the first thing she saw was the rose and the bud vase on her desk. Harleen stood in the doorway, transfixed. The rose was a rich, dark red in full perfect bloom, its elegance underscored by the simple, clear vase. The idea that someone would want to give her something so lovely made her heart lift, the way it did when she launched herself into a gymnastics routine to her favorite music. This was meant to bring her joy. It seemed like forever since anyone had done something like that for her. Get a grip, girlfriend, said a small, sensible voice in her head. It's a flower, not a pile of gold bullion or the Hope Diamond or even a pay raise. Did you notice that's a plant? Remind you of anyone? All the little hairs on the back of Harleen's neck stood up. Would Pamela Poison Ivy try something else so soon? Or was it a peace offering? Sorry we tried to kill you. I won't let it happen again. Oh God, what if Poison Ivy didn't merely not hate her, but wanted to be friends? What would that be like? No, Poison Ivy didn't cut flowers. To her, it was like killing them. She wouldn't do that for anyone. Then who had sent it? Maybe it was booby-trapped. She felt silly. How could anyone booby-trap a rose? Ask the inmates, she thought. They could probably booby-trap air. They're experts. It could be electrified, or maybe it shoots poisoned thorns. Maybe when she bent to smell its fragrance, it would squirt her in the face with vinegar, or something a lot worse. She reached her desk without anything blowing up or crashing down on her, and saw there was something else on the desk. A playing card turned face down. Without giving herself time to catastrophize, she picked it up. Harleen stared at it for a long moment. Then she laughed, feeling all the tension drain out of her. She should have known. This wasn't from Poison Ivy or any other woman. This card was a joker. Under the grinning cartoon face was the message. Welcome. Why don't you come down to see me sometime? Jay. Well played, Mr. J, Harleen said aloud in her tough Brooklyn cookie voice. Pun definitely intended. The single perfect rose was a male thing. Only a man would think that one perfect rose would make a woman so blissfully weak in the knees she wouldn't miss the other 11. Someone had to disabuse Mr. J of that notion. She was just the woman for the job. Tomorrow. She didn't want him to think she'd come running at the drop of a rose. And that's it for chapter 11. I believe we've already got Joker mentioned. But one thing that that I missed before the page break for the non-canon is another technological advancement. Social media exists. And that shouldn't be the case in the early 90s. And then I guess I might as well put that Harley intends to visit Joker tomorrow. That's page 100. There we go. So that's chapter 11. That's this week's chapters. Next week, it looks like we're gonna be dealing with, of course, the meeting between her and Joker, and that's gonna be 9 pages. And let's see. Yeah, so it looks like we're staying in Arkham all of next week, dealing a lot with the beginnings of the Joker and Harley relationship. Interesting that that's not coming until we're a third of the way through the book. Just because of how much their stories are intertwined. That you would think that in a book like this he would come very early on, but they've found a way to give us a lot of story that doesn't involve him, that allows Harley to breathe and be her own character, and I'm glad we're getting it. I have the DVD, but haven't gotten around to watching it yet. I just remember people being mad about it because, of course, they were. Yeah. Okay. People get mad about everything, but yeah, I've got it on, I think, digital copy, on Vudu. I've been cheating to get movies. I'm gonna show you all my cheat code real quick. So to get movies really cheap, and legally, I found this website called DVDUPC.com, that essentially, if you've got the Vudu app, they have a disc to digital program. And you essentially what it is if you own a movie, you scan the barcode and you can buy the digital version of the movie for $2. Of course, like there's no the only way that they have to be like, do you really own this movie, is that like it's GPS based, so you can't go to like the store and scan movies there. But if you're sitting in the comfort of your own house, you can pull up DVDUPC.com and search whatever movie you want. Let's say Friday the 13th, right? It was just Halloween, so we can. And like not everything, it has to be stuff that's eligible with DVD UPC. I know Disney doesn't really work with them, or not with DVD UPC, but with the what you call it, the disc to digital on Vudu. I know Disney doesn't really work with them, but so yeah, so you would just go through, you would find it, and then they have just a bunch of UPC codes down at the bottom. You don't gotta worry about that authentication required thing. That's just to post comments. There they are. There's the UPCs. And like sometimes they only have standard definition and you gotta pay like $5 to upgrade it to HD or whatever. So I've been that's how I got most of my DCEU movies, was through that, because Warner Brothers does work with them. And then I've just the ones that aren't on there yet, because I think it takes time to get them on the list. I just bought those off of eBay, bought the digital copy codes that people weren't using. So I got all of those for pretty cheap. Let's see. I haven't seen Joker or Birds of Prey. Yeah, me either. I heard rumors that Bruce Timm has been working on another Batman movie, but I'm not sure about it. We do have Batman Soul of the Dragon is coming soon. Like I think in January. And that's a Bruce Timm movie. It's not DCAU though. When you get to the 10-year anniversary, are you guys going to do 48-hour live stream? Oh God, no. I mean, I will be in my mid-30s by that time, and I can tell you right now, it was already a struggle trying to, stay awake for a 24-hour live stream. I can't imagine doubling that up. Can you imagine if social media was a thing in the 90s, though? Fresh Prince would be labeled SJW trash by free-thinking classical liberals. Bill Clinton would tweet out, I did not have sexual relations with that. God, oh my God. Like, okay, imagine... I'm thinking about Bill Clinton tweeting that, and like I don't see a distinction between that and a Trump tweet, and like that's comic nerds would fight endlessly about how BTAS isn't a real Batman show. It would be delightfully terrible. I do think that that maybe a lot of things would have happened differently if we were to have social media, though, because like I know that social media like opens the door for all of those kinds of arguments and shit, but I also feel like those argumentative topics are algorithmically like pushed to the forefront just because they drive engagement. But overall, like and it makes you stay on the website, and the more they sell more ads that way. But overall, like I feel like social media has opened the door to see like how people live outside of your bubble, right? Like I don't think that I would be the person that I am today without it, right? Like I was raised deeply conservative, deeply Christian. Propaganda is to like believe some pretty authoritarian bullshit. Like I've been going to my dad's Twitter feed like almost every day since the Trump lost this election, and he's going wild on some stuff, and I feel like despite the negatives that do come with social media, it gave me the ability to kind of start thinking for myself and forming my opinions based on a wider view of the world than I was originally getting, right? Which like it isn't necessarily to say that like that people who are Christian or people who like have conservative beliefs are bad people, right? Like, I mean, there are definitely people who are bad people who believe those things. But I do think that like if you're not actively hurting people, then whatever. But like as soon as your Christianity or conservatism comes into the scope of like we should be mean to people because of their sexuality or whatever, like that's when I start going, whoa buddy, like back the fuck up. Because I my way of thinking is that I want a better world for all people, right? Not just the people who believe the things that I do. I want a better world for all people, and I want the things that I believe to be able to deliver that better world to a point where it makes people realize, oh, I hadn't considered that way of thinking before, and it is making things better for me, and I should let go of these ideas that I have that are harmful to others. If that makes sense, right? Like, there's just a huge propaganda machine that's like been built by corporate interests and billionaires and yada 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 yada, that makes otherwise good people believe harmful things. And I don't want to penalize the people who have, bought into it, because it makes it so hard to, get out of that bubble, right? Like I said, had I not landed in the social media circles that I did land in at certain points in time, like I would still be there myself. I think that there's a redemptive arc for people who believe harmful things. I just don't want them to push their harmful stuff. How did I get there? Oh, because of Danny's comment. Let's see. I wish I could be involved with the channel. Well, I mean, if you've got something that you can offer up as a way of being helpful, you can always feel free to email the info@watchtowerdatabase.com email and make that suggestion to James and or Ted. But for the most part, I feel like there have been like a couple of times where we're like, hey, more people on the channel would be cool. But we don't really make enough money to even pay all of ourselves like a livable wage. And so it makes it a bit more complicated to add more people on, because then the money gets even thinner. So, and like I know some people are just like, oh, I would do XYZ for free, but like I personally don't feel comfortable with the concept of exploiting other people's labor. So I don't like the doing things free for people. Adam Strange says not. I worded that saying I don't like doing things for free for people. I don't like other people doing things for free for me. That's what I meant. Adam Strange says hi. Hi, Adam. Adam Strange, you have logged in towards the end of this stream. We've already finished our chapters, and I'm just catching up with the chat and having philosophical conversation, I guess. I wish... well, let's see. Exactly. Oh, did I drop out for a second? It says, welcome to the chat room. Medicare for all helps everyone. Free college helps everyone. Ending the drug war helps everyone. It's imperative that we get these things done for the sake of the whole population. And liberals who tweet out shit like Texas went for Trump, so it's fine that they get COVID don't help at all. Yeah, exactly. Like I hate all of that, right? Like one of the takes that I saw after the election, I think was Tim Pool saying something along the lines of like, how leftists are going to be salt mining now and not to give them anything, right? Because like right-wing, more conservative, like internet commentators have been reusing like the same dyed hair SJW freak out reaction memes for like the last 4 years, and like they don't want to end up looking like the thing that they're mocking. And like I retweeted that, and I just said, like, look, you guys are like, your side of things is having freakouts, but that's not what I want to see. Like, I don't care about this whole "don't give it to them" kind of thing. Like, I don't want to see this anyway. Like it's not okay that we live in a system where no matter who wins, half of the voting population feels like they lost, feels like it's the end of the world. Like it shouldn't be that way. Like, my politics are about like helping people, not about seeing them freak out and have breakdowns. And like, yeah, it can be entertaining to watch like a freak out compilation or whatever, because it's so unhooked from like what we see as reality. But I think that the usefulness of that is only in the fact that it like, it allows you to see that the way that you see the world isn't necessarily the way that others see the world, and it gives you reason to think of ways to get your viewpoint across to these kinds of people, you know. Like, I mean, I don't know what the fuck I would say to a person like about the good things that a Biden administration could do if they are so far gone as like the Biden crime family stealing the election guy that's been, you know, making the rounds. And like, I'm not saying that like that's the majority of the conservative thought right now, but there's a lot of people who follow right-wing politics who, like, whether or not they're going out and like causing a scene like that guy, they do believe that, right? They do think that, and it kind of like, it makes you think of, okay, like, how do I tailor the message of like, look, Biden isn't great for everybody, like, but he is better, you know, like how do you have these discussions with these people? And that's the only like utility that I see in these freak out videos, is just kind of letting you see how other people perceive the world. But other than that, like, I don't want to see these people so desperate and so like downtrodden that they feel that this is like what they've got to do. Like, it's just ugh. It's hard to talk about these things off the top of my head. I feel like because like no matter how much no matter how much like I pay attention to politics, I feel like I'm a dumb guy, you know, and that I don't know, not necessarily what I'm talking about, but how to convey what I'm talking about a lot of the time. At least not in a split second case. God damn it, I brought politics into the streams again. Hey, it's okay. I mean, it gives a breakup of, you know, the escapism of reading a chapter book. And I think this is the most people who have been watching the stream throughout today's stream. It's saying that I've got 7 viewers right now, which I think is more than we had at the start, which was just the 4. So for everyone who has joined in the last little bit, we're actually kind of at the end of things. We were reading the 2018 novelization of Harley Quinn Mad Love, the origin story of Harley Quinn. And we got through 2 chapters today. We do these streams. Well, the Watchtower Database channel as a whole does streams Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at noon Pacific Standard Time. Or it's probably just Pacific Time. I think Eastern is what's known as Standard Time. Oh, well, 4 of them disappeared. But anyway, yeah, so we do these streams every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. James is on Tuesday with Justice League Adventures, read-throughs, and breakdowns. Ted comes through on Wednesdays, usually playing video games. I think he said yesterday he's going to take a break until he figures out his internet situation. And then I am here on Thursdays reading Mad Love until we get through the end of it. We're about a third of the way there. Usually it's 2 chapters. Sometimes it's just 1 chapter. We just got to see where the hour takes us. But yeah, with all that said, I do need to figure out getting a modem and router and all that situated so that we can get Xfinity to swing by and hook up internet and I can stop mooching off of a really bad hotspot. So I'm going to get off, go do that, and I will see you all next week. Take care. Love y'all. You know, it's okay for us to talk politics on these streams sometimes, Danny. I enjoy it. Let's do it again next week. Y'all take care. Bye.